So if you have a high amount of energy in your body, like we were just talking about with the fats and the carbs at one point, and time. So if you have a low amount of good healthy fats, your body does need two essential nutrients that people don't know about. Protein's essential and fats are essential. Carbs can go in and out as they please depending on what the process is, what you need to do. So another way to for when you're designing your program or your diet, let's say, you gotta take all those variables into consideration. If someone is heavier or more overweight, they're already probably not going to process carbs very well. But it doesn't mean that they have to starve themselves and go low calories to get lean or leaner. And especially in the beginning, you want to do a slow process of coming down. That's why I always preach doing longer diets, even for competitors, even for non-competitors. It's always a slow process. You don't want to really lose more than, let's say, 1 pound to 2 pounds per week, right? So if you're losing at average that, you're gonna be losing fat at a acceptable rate, and you're not gonna be losing muscle in that process. But let's say, okay, when you're eating at times of the day that you should be having carbs are if you're wanting to burn a little more fat during your workout, I probably wouldn't eat them pre-workout just because then you're gonna have energy for the workout versus if you go into the workout, let's say without carbohydrates in your system, maybe just some healthy fats, just a little bit, and some protein. You're gonna spare muscle from the protein. You're gonna help build muscle. You're gonna have a little bit of energy from the fats, essential fats, so good fats, not talking like bacon and other like shitty fats like that. So you want to make sure that you're taking in the proper sources before your training. So like I said, if your goal is solely just to burn fat, you don't need the carbs before training. But after your workout, you should have a little bit of carbohydrates. That's probably the more important time of the day to actually take in more carbs. Because if you're taking in, let's say, majority of like half the amount of your carbs for your day after your training, and then you take in maybe, let's say, another portion in the morning for breakfast when you're fasted all night with your protein meal, and then maybe you could have maybe one more carb meal that's smaller sometime in the day when you feel like, hey, like if you're an active person during the day with a lot of work and maybe your job is very physically demanding. If your job is very physically demanding, then you should have the carbs a little bit more spread out and throughout the day so that you're giving yourself a little bit of energy to do your job properly, right? Because the last thing you want to do is feel super tired and sluggish all day. But again, if we're trying to lose body fat, you're gonna have to be hungry. That's one thing that's gonna happen. It's inevitable. I get clients ask me all the time. It's like, well, I'm hungry right now. At the end of the day, well, you're hungry at the end of the day because your body is also stretching your stomach out because you're eating food. We eat meals frequently, like 5 meals a day, maybe 4 meals a day if you're just a health person, but usually 4 to 6. So we're eating still, even though we're maybe not eating a ton of calories. Healthy food has a lot more volume to it. So if you're eating like a good amount of protein and you're eating a good amount of vegetables, even if you're not eating a complex carb source or that type of thing, it's going to have volume. So let's say you're eating 200 grams of vegetables, you're eating 100 grams of protein or 100 grams of weight in protein. So let's say that's like that would equate to about like 30 grams of protein in a serving. It's going to create volume. It's going to stretch your stomach out. So that's like when you look at your body at the end of the day versus the beginning of the day, you're way more tighter in the morning than you are later in the day. Just because you're not stretching your stomach out, you don't have all that water, you don't have that food weight, you don't have that volume inside your body. So if you're stretching out your stomach all day, of course you're going to be hungry later on in the day at nighttime because your body's stomach's stretched out and you're trying to fill that void. So your body thinks, oh, I have this much more room so I can fill it up. And then also when you diet down, when you keep dieting for a while, your body's stomach will start shrinking naturally. So then you'll let's say you have a cheat meal like once a week or something like that on your diet, off the diet plan. You eat as much as you can at that cheat meal at one sitting. So you're not eating the whole entire day, so you're not ruining your whole day. You're eating one meal, just whatever you feel till you're full. Don't binge eat, don't overindulge, but whatever you want. I usually tell people pick foods that are relative to them that feel good when they eat them. If you eat pizza and you feel like garbage after, you look like don't look that good the next day and that type of thing, it's probably not the best source for you to have for a cheat meal, personally. If you have more weight to lose, if you're an overweight person, you should probably stay clear of more sugary substances like desserts that are high in sugar and high in fat. Also, I would stay clear of the high fat meals and high carb meals. Even on the cheat meal, I would try to stick to maybe something a little bit more cleaner, like going out for a nice dinner at a restaurant where you have like maybe like some pasta with some grilled chicken breasts on it, or having a steak and baked potato with some vegetables, something like that. That's off maybe what you would normally eat, not weighed out, not all portioned out, controlled, and all that consistency. Because I'm a big preacher in consistency with all my clients, even if they're general fitness, even if they're competitors, whatever they are. What you measure, if you can measure it, you can track it. If you can't measure, you're not gonna be able to track the progress. How are you gonna know? How are you gonna know what you did all week? If you did Monday, Tuesday, you ate like whatever you wanted, you know what you ate. Then Wednesday, Thursday, you ate good, lower carb, maybe you look a little better then. But then maybe you're only consistent for 1 or 2 days. Then you go back to the other way of eating. Then your body's going back and forth, and you have nothing to track progression. So like, let's say I give someone a diet, I set them at a certain amount of macros in a day, and portion control at certain times a day when they're supposed to eat those kind of macros and stuff like that. Then I can track. So like, let's say I go weekly check-ins. So maybe let's say Saturday or Sunday, they send me some pictures, they send me their weight, they send me how they felt for that week. And then I can go by that, by changing their diet if it's needed, or if I can change their cardio if that's happening. If maybe they weren't that consistent, we can have a little talk and we can go be like, okay, well, what did we screw up on this week? What can we do better next week? Because that's the point of like check-ins. That's the point of consistency. Is to find out what you're not consistent at and get more consistent at it. Like if someone has a hard time drinking water, your body's made up of 70% water. So if you have a hard time taking in fluids and those types of things, and you're not consistent on that, that can cause weight fluctuations too, because your body can hold more water if you're not drinking enough. It can also, if you're drinking more water, if you're not used to it, it can also hold on to it for a bit and then it will start flushing it. But when you're going up and down, you have no idea. So your weight might go up and down like a pound or two, and then you're like, well, what's happening? Like, because your water's not consistent as well. You don't need to get so finicky where you have to be perfect, but it should be a general guideline of like, let's say, for women, I usually say that are not overly heavy, they need to be maybe 3 to 5 liters of water a day, which is still a lot for the average person because most people don't even drink 3 liters, half of them. For a male, I would say at least 4 to 6. 6 being on the high end, 4 being on the low end. Because if you're an active person, you're going to be sweating a lot. You're also, like I said, your body's made of 70% water. So if you're not giving it water, how's it going to push the food everywhere? Your body needs sodium. It needs all those other things to move nutrients around in your body so that you get those nutrients to go into where they need to go. Without salt or water, there's no shuttling component for the food. So the food's just going to sit in your stomach and cause you a bloated and distended feeling. And then it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to be used up properly. So in the end, you got to try to make the smartest approach to your diet, to your training. You have to kind of look at how your training is and go by that as well. So like if you're training very, very hard and intense, you might need more carbs, especially around your training time. You might need carbs pre-workout then if you're training very intense, because if you're not, you might die out halfway through and not be able to give it all you got. So at that point, you gotta adjust your diet and be like, hey, I need more energy at this point for this because I train hard. Some people, they don't train that hard and they don't need as much, or maybe they can't train that hard. Maybe they have like double hip replacement surgeries, or maybe they have something like that, or maybe a knee injury, maybe that's something like that. So if you're not training as intense and you know that you're not, just be honest with yourself, then you don't need as much food or not as much carbohydrate intake for energy because your body's not going to be using it. But you still need the essential amount of protein. Usually I'd say about 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. I usually go by lean body weight because not everyone, like if you're like 200 pounds but you have 80 pounds of fat on you, you're not a true 200 pounder, so you don't need 200 and 200 to 300 grams of protein a day because you only weigh 120 pounds of lean actual mass. So you probably need 120 grams of protein to maybe 175 grams of protein a day if you're that kind of person. But let's say you're 220 and maybe your lean body mass is 160, then you need at least 160 upwards to maybe, let's say, 220 or something like that. I don't know exactly right now, but that's a general guideline. And then the rest of the calories got to be made up of fats or carbohydrates, right? So, and there you got to play around. You got to figure out what works for you. So some people, like I said, will work better on higher fat and then high protein diet with less carbs. Maybe not zero carbs, but might have to go lower. And there's always that threshold. So there's that tipping point of like, okay, if you eat, certain people have a certain amount of carbs they can eat, and then that's like their sweet spot. So they start losing fat, they start losing like weight and that type of thing slowly, and it just starts responding. And then there's that point where some people that threshold's higher than others. So some people it's down here, maybe it's like 100 grams of carbs for one person, maybe it's 250 for another person, right? But maybe the person that's at 250 has a lot less fat than the person that's at 100, right? But maybe they both have the same amount of fats. Who knows? But you got to find that threshold of how much energy you're burning, how much you need to perform and do your job properly. And then if we're getting into a contest prep situation, that's a lot more complicated as you get closer to show. Things go out the window in like ways of like energy and things like that especially when you get close. When you got to get that stubborn body fat off at the end, that's usually the hardest part. You almost have to suffer to a degree in a way where you have to go pretty low on the energy to get those body parts to come off, because your body will always have those areas that it'll want to come off really easy, and then it'll have those areas that just don't want to come off very easy. They're very stubborn. Hormonally, you might be a little bit in a deficit in that degree, but it'll always come off. It's just sometimes at that point, you got to look outside the box and push a little harder than you ever did before. Maybe you have to diet a little bit more extreme. But like I said, that's for like a contest prep situation. So if you're just a general person looking to lose body fat and weight and do it for a lifestyle, you're not gonna do that kind of extreme dieting at the end, right? It's all within progression. But like I said about the hunger thing, you have to be hungry in order to kind of burn calories and be in a deficit. If you're not losing tons and tons of body weight or changing too fast, then you're not eating too little or you're not doing too much energy. Then you're probably either you're at a maintainable caloric intake, or you're in a slight deficit where you're losing slowly, which is perfect. If you're losing 1 pound to 2 pounds per week, sometimes you might not even lose that. Sometimes you might still lose body fat, but you might stay the same weight, which is fine because your body's just filling up muscles and stuff like that. But you're also losing fat, but you filled up your muscles a bit with some water and some glycogen. So in the end of the day, if you get leaner, that's all that matters in the scale aspect. So scale is not always your number one tool you want to look at. It is, like I said, a tool to be used, but it shouldn't be the set parameters of what's happening. But like I said, you have to kind of be hungry. It's normal to be hungry. Just try to, like I said, like if you're hungrier later in the day, maybe eat a little bit more vegetables with one of those meals. That way you can feel a little bit fuller, a little longer. Fiber slows down a lot of digestion. So if you're eating fiber, like vegetables with protein, you're going to feel a lot fuller than if you ate it without fiber. Because fiber is going to slow down the digestion more so. It's going to have a little bit of volume in your stomach. So when your stomach is stretched out at the end of the day, if you eat a bit more vegetables, you might fill that void a bit. You might be able to go to bed a lot easier. But you don't want to, for the general population though, you don't want to eat carbs right before bed unless you're training in the evening. Like let's say you're training before your last meal of the day because you work all day. Then you can have your carbohydrates post-workout like we were talking earlier where they're essential to have. But if you're not training later in the day, you're training earlier in the day, you don't really need those carbs before bed later on in the day. Then they're going to just be stored as body fat and used and not be used up properly like how they should be. So that's a little bit of an insight. There's a couple questions I answered about diet that I've been asked quite frequently a lot. So those are some of the questions that we're going to discuss today and we discussed. If you guys like this and you want to hear some more, we'll do some more Q&As and questions. The next one we'll probably do more about training and how to structure your training around weak body parts and things like that. So if you guys like this, feel free to comment below and subscribe to my channel here, Muscular Performance Fitness. This is Coach Cody Heinrichs. I'm also an IFBB national level bodybuilder. I will be competing in the Canadian Nationals on July 1st in Edmonton, Alberta. So I'm 12 days out. So I'm dieted out right now. And I'm also training all my clients for their shows, and also training all my normal clients for their general fitness. So if you have any extra questions, feel free to actually check out my website as well at www.mp-fitness.com. And I have a bunch of coaching services on there. I have meal plans, I have training programs that you can buy. I have month-to-month coaching plans that you can buy. I have contest prep coaching month-to-month that you can purchase. I have a blog on there that I'll be updating more and more. So go check it out. Let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to my video.